So this is an edited series of images. Got about 300 and actually 295 in this particular set of images. This particular collection. When I typically shoot for a time lapse, I shoot anywhere from 240 to 480. And the reason for that is because of the 24 images per second is what the eye can really view as cinematic, and so that's what all film, all movies, it's at 24 frames per second is based upon. So doing your math, anytime you shoot at 240 images minimum, you get about 10 seconds of footage. So if you do your multiples out, 480 seconds gives you 20 seconds of footage. 720 then obviously gives you that much more. So it's kind of a fun thing to get set up ahead of time. But I always figure with a time lapse sequence, the minimum I would want to do is about 10 seconds. So as I said, this is a set of images that I shot over the summer and have already edited. But I think I have a couple of sets here that I haven't edited. So I will go through, straight out what I would do for putting together the edits on this. So this is raw. This is straight out of the camera. You can see there's quite a green hue to it. Whenever I shoot astrophotography, I always shoot fully in raw, and I always shoot with daylight for the white balance. Again, I use Sony cameras, so most of my time-lapse images are shot on either the A7 IV or an A7 S3. I typically shoot at ISO 6400, and then whatever the best settings for that particular lens, I'll dial in my aperture and then figure out my duration. So again, this was a 24 millimeter lens. It's an f1.4 lens, so shooting it wide open. And then rule of 500 says that a 24 millimeter lens, I could shoot at least a 12 second, but I go with a near perfect formula. So I take that down to 8 seconds. That formula is down in Photo Pills. Not sponsored by Photo Pills, but I do use Photo Pills. So I get that 8 second timing there. And this is, if we go into this image a little bit, you can see this is one of the arguments against this lens. Not that I'm going to do a deep dive onto this lens, but there's this purple fringing, so that astigmatism shows up there pretty bad. But that's an easy thing to correct here in Lightroom. So I will always go in to start my basic edits, go to an image that's a little more corrected for the horizon. So I always do my best to shoot a level horizon to make sure I don't get anything too crazy. I mean, again, you can adjust that easily enough here, by cropping, but don't have to clean that up at this point. I'll always start with my color space, so or the Lightroom presets for color space. I can go to camera settings and exporting. So that's the first change the profile there to standard. As far as setting up my colors, my white balance, as I said, I shoot in daylight, and I know that typically a night sky, it's the color temperature is around 3,800 degrees. But what this technique does is allows me to get a really neutral, really just a flat sky that I can then enhance later on. But I'll grab the vibrance and grab the saturation and take those to 100, which just again exaggerates both the temperature and the tint. So I can then I'll start with my tint and bring that down again quite a bit. You can see that the way this came out. It was 5250 for the color temperature, so that's pretty high temperature. And I just bring this down until there's a nice balance between the blue and the yellow. So obviously just extreme. There's cooling it down completely. A big blue cast everywhere. I don't want that. Take it all the way up to 50,000. Yeah, that obviously that's not whatever works for you. But I'm probably going to end up around 4,200. 3,800 obviously to me is too cool. I want a nice balance between the blues and the yellows. I really like the nebulosity over here, how that's already popping out. So that's at 4,000. So I'm gonna just set it at 4,025, just to see what that looks like. That's probably a little cooler. Might bring that up to 4,250. But then let's go ahead and mess with our magenta a bit. See, and it's the same thing. You want to try and balance out. I like to try and balance out where there's a mix of the two colors, the red and the green. I don't want one to overpower the other. Again, I don't want to go all that purple. And again, you can see as I bring that back down, they come back into better check. But now I'm starting to slide over into the screen. You can see that green really exaggerated over here. And so I kind of I was just noticing the tint here at about 25. I thought that looked pretty good, at least in this region. Again, it's real dark here. Let's take that up to 4,250. Yeah, that's a little better balance. There's enough of the yellows peeking out, but it's not overwhelming the blues. There's enough blue here, but it's not overwhelming the yellows. The magenta and the green. The magenta is starting to pop a little bit. The green obviously is not overwrought. What will be interesting is I'm going to look here at a histogram when I reduce my saturation and my vibrance. I'm going to look and see where those fall, because one of the things I've really noticed is in editing, no matter where the white balance starts out at, if I can get my blue and my green to overlap pretty well, I seem to be pretty happy with the overall results. So you can see here, reducing vibrance and saturation, there's pretty nice overlap between those two. And now I'm going to just tweak those a little bit and see if I warm it up, if that brings that overlap a little bit more in line. Yeah, so let's just try 4450. No, I'm going to go 4550. And then what about drop that a little bit? Yeah, I don't know. One of the things that I find here in the skies in Colorado, shooting in the summer, there tends to be a whole lot of color cast in the sky. There's we've had lots of energy. And the day, really heats up a lot. If there's been thunderstorms, a lot of moisture, so the sky can be really vibrant, and you can get a lot of the green and yellow banding. It's not the northern lights, so. As I said, it's not the northern lights. It's colloquially referred to as air glow. So, and it can have a really interesting effect in the time lapse. The waves as the positive and negative ions exchange their energy, you can really see the waves across the sky. So I used to try to edit it out. I didn't know. I thought it was a problem with the sensor. I thought there was something wrong with the sensors in the camera. But as I've learned, it actually really enhances it. So to me, again, so there's a bit of a green cast still. I tried to get that magenta in a little bit more. I think 30 is going to be too strong. I'm going to bring it back down to 25 just to be safe. So there, 25. To me, that's a good start. Again, there's a lot of green in there, but I think that's just going to be the air glow that we're going to have to work with. I like how there's a lot of nebulosity here through the core. You can see the dark horse. It's kind of sitting on its butt here, and the head up here, the foreleg nice and curled there. You can see the roll Fuji really starting to stand out here. You can even see the nebulosity there. So it's a good start. My next step is to go ahead and then work on contrast first. So I've really started, the last 18 months, 2 years, I've really worked on a negative contrast. I will drop my whites and then I will take my blacks and lift those. And I've been a little bit happier with the results of this. Again, there's dozens of ways to do this, but this is just one way to add contrast to the image. I'll then take my white point, and again, if you don't know the trick in Lightroom, holding down the option key here can really tell you what is over and what's underexposed. So these areas that are white are areas that are going to be difficult to contain or control. So obviously adding some white really does a nice job of brightening the scene up without adding exposure to everything. And gonna go with my blacks and lift that up, and you can see there on the screen that as those black points start to disappear because I'm lifting up the black, our image starts to lighten up a little bit. So again, that's my shadows. So I think it's probably a little bit strong. Bring that back down a little bit. And then check my true blacks, drop those, and again, so where those highlights begin to stand out, those blacks are going to be just black. And again, those are deep shadows there in those trees, so I'll lift those shadows back up a little bit. And then highlights, again, that's going to really affect the sky. You can see the real shift there in the core of Milky Way. I always add a little bit of clarity. I've not, again, especially in night skies, reducing clarity can really do a nice job of softening the scene. I don't know, I tend to edit it a little sharper, so I'll add clarity. Typically not a lot more than 20 or 25 on clarity. And the dehazing, it really depends on the scene. I like to drop the dehazing a lot. Again, not excessive, there's it all the way out, but if I drop it, if I feel like the scene is a little darker than I'd like, I'll reduce the dehazing as much as, to 10 or 15, to negative 10 or 15, just because it, to me, it brings in some brightening. It brightens the scene up. It's maybe a false brightening, but it does that for me. Now I'll add back in my vibrance, and maybe we'll start to see some of those colors kick back up. I typically go with a little heavier on the vibrance than I do on the saturation. I like bright colors. I'm not going to say I don't, but I also that's not where I want. I'm not going to overly saturate my images. I do tend to shoot bright colors, but and I'm just bringing my highlights down a little bit there. So we've got a nice pop. I'm going to fiddle with our tint and hue here and our temperature just a little bit. I want to see if taking that up to 30 does anything that I like. Drop it down to 15. Yeah, that's way too green. 20, still too green. Let's just leave it back at that 25. I think that's pretty good. I'll play with my luminance sliders here. Again, the trick of grabbing it, placing it out here on the color that you want to work with. That's quite a bit, so I'll probably bring those up a little bit. Doesn't look bad, but don't want it to be super strong. Again, that green's real. I'd like to reduce this a little bit, so I'm going to go to our saturation and see if I can pull some of that green out. So we want to be careful. I want to be careful. I don't like it overly green, but you can see this is what the camera's producing. Back to 20 and see. Yeah, I might cool off the image as a whole, so get those adjustments. I don't go again real heavy. I kind of just like to experiment at first to see if there's something that looks interesting. Yeah, that's a global. That's bringing it all in. Yeah, it's not bad. I will check my sharpening. I'll go ahead and mask up. You can see the moire pattern there a little bit. This is the A7 IV, so that does have a low pass filter, so there shouldn't be too much aliasing in there. Bring the actual amount of sharpening up, but scroll down. What's my profile? This was the 24. Again, I can get rid of a lot of that hue just with the eyedropper, and that will go globally. Like that's hitting every spot, every lens or every star that's got that chromatic abrasion. And again, so zoom in. That particular abrasion is now gone on all of those. It's still shown up here, but that might actually be in the color on. You can see all the major ones. The reds it's not going to affect, the orange it's not going to affect. So it does a nice job of cleaning stuff up. I like to come down and check my shadows here. I'm going to drop the greens. Again, if there's a lot of noise, that noise tends to get kind of magenta, so bring that color back into balance. We'll go there. Again, you can see that banding there throughout, and it's not awful, but that's there's the red and there's the green and the aqua. But if that's moving throughout the sky, that's kind of a nice effect. Go ahead and hit copy, and haven't done anything really excessive. No masking. It just takes a lot of computer power when you've got this many images to go through and get edited. And so I've got all those in line, and now I'm going to paste just to one a little bit later in the scene. So this is probably an hour or so of shooting later. Let's go ahead and paste those settings. My catalog's super full. I need to restart my catalog. for the coming year. I typically make a new catalog every year. Paste it again, see if it wants to paste. It's not real happy right now, but that's okay. Oh, come on. There we go. And yeah, I don't think those are bad adjustments. I'm gonna drop that. No, I don't like the green. I'm gonna go back up. Actually, I'm gonna set that at 25 and recopy it and see what happens. Drop my exposure just a little tiny bit there to see what it's gonna do. Yeah, it's taking a long time to bring up that dialog box. Just one too many images. Again, a lot of times if you've got multiple, got batch edits to do, every computer kind of has its tolerance. So I did 368. I probably actually shot 365, so 8765. I'm going to select that one. I'm going to go ahead and hit paste. And up here, Lightroom will start showing it's actually doing the work right now, but it's kind of not. And it begins to paste. And again, this is the slower part of the process. Not always my favorite, but it works. Again, when a catalog is a smaller catalog, it works a lot faster. This is an M1 Max Studio. It's an M1 Max. I believe I have 64 megabytes of RAM and a 1 terabyte hard drive. I'm running most of my edits though off of a Barracuda, off of the who makes the Barracuda? I can't remember right now. It's not Western Digital. It's the other brand, Seagate. Been real happy with them, but again, it's a 8 terabyte spinning disk, so it's a little bit slower, but it's a bit more reliable. And then that's my archive. So just keep pasting and let these edits sort of sit in. Probably gonna stop and restart Lightroom here. It did a backup earlier, so I kind of got it moving a little faster. But so yeah, I'm gonna close for now, and then I'll come back when all this stuff is pasted, and then we'll go from there.